Oppia's Google Summer of Code 2021 Lightning Talks event. In this event, all the GSoC students selected for this year will be presenting their work and progress that they have done so far in the past 2 months. And I'll be the host for this event. I'll be co-hosting this event along with Yashraj, and we both are also GSoC students this year, contributing to the uh, Oppia Android project. So this year we had a total of 18 students selected for GSoC, which are Arjun Gupta, Apur Srivastav, Fariz Hussain, Abhay Garg, Sparsh Agarwal, Yash Raj, Nikhil Agarwal, Aditya Dubey, Hardik Katera, Ashutosh Chauhan, Aryaman Gupta, Rijuta Singh, Krishita Jain, Isha Arif, Mridul Setia, Aishwarya Saxena, Praneet G, and Radesh Kumar. So it's going to be a fun event, and I hope you'll enjoy this event. So over to the next slide, please. So we also have a Q&A Slido link. So if you have any questions in between that you want to ask, you can simply add your question there, and we'll be picking up questions which has the highest number of upvotes, and we'll be taking question after every 5 to 6 presentations. So feel free to add any question that you want, and you can also leave any messages in the Meet chat if you want. So next slide. Now I'd like to invite Arjun to give the presentation for his project implementing platform parameters and feature flags.
Thanks, Persh. So, hello everyone. My name is Arjun, and I have been working on implementing platform parameters and feature flags project in Nepo Android. And my primary mentor is Vinita. Next slide, please. The aim of this project is to prepare an architectural setup for consuming platform parameters and feature flags in Oppia Android. These platform parameters will enable us to remotely tweak the behavior of Android client without even making any new release. With feature flags, we will also be able to hide feature-specific code and control whatever the behavior is on the client side without making, even if that code is in the released app. Next slide, please. As of now, we are ready to use compile time platform parameters. This means that we can define and consume a platform parameter that is currently not available in the Oppia backend. In a simpler word, we can use platform parameters which are right now in offline mode. We have written an integration test which proves that the current architecture is able to provide the flags and values correctly. And this test actually does what it does is uses a demo screen to test the visibility of a particular toast message based on the flag value. The results are on the next slide. Here in the first screen, we can see whenever the flag has a value of false, which is a by default value. So in that case, the toast is invisible. And when we dynamically change it to true, so the toast is visible accordingly. And these values are injected with the help of dagger. So this proves that the architecture is completing the circle. Next slide, please. Finally, we will be able to support both runtime and compile time platform parameters. This means that we will have both support for offline and online platform parameters. Along with that, we will have a mechanism to remotely sync this platform parameter values with the Oppia backend and store this into the local cache store. Thank you. Over to you, Sparsh.
Thank you, Arjun, for the presentation. Now we'll be moving to the next presentation. Next slide, please. Yes. So implement lightweight checkpointing. Over to you, Apu.
So hello everyone, my name is Apur Srivastav and I'm working on implementing lightweight checkpointing, and my primary mentor is Pulkit Agarwal. Next slide please. So OPS lesson can take about 15 minutes to an hour to complete, but we don't save the learner's progress during a lesson. So this means if a learner leaves a lesson partially complete, they will have to start it again once they return to it. So this degrades the overall user experience. So this project aims to introduce lightweight checkpointing where a learner's state is completely retained if they navigate away from a lesson. Next slide, please. So far, we have created a controller that handles the saving and retrieving, a learner's progress, and we have also implemented the mechanism to mark checkpoint as the user progresses in a lesson. To ensure that these changes don't break over time, and also to ensure that we have covered all the edge cases, we have added a lot of tests that test the saving mechanism. Next slide, please. The final outcome of this project will be that all progress made in a lesson that a learner leaves partially complete will be saved locally. We will have a new UI that will allow the users to choose if they wish to resume a lesson or if they wish to start the lesson from the beginning. If a learner chooses to resume a lesson, they will be able to continue the lesson from the point where they exactly left off. Thank you.
Thank you, Apur. The next project is end-to-end testing support. Uh, Over to you, Faris.
Hello everyone, I'm Faiz Hussain, uh, and my project this year is end-to-end testing support, mentored by Akshay Nandwana. Next slide. Next slide. Okay. So the aim of the project is to introduce end-to-end tests in Oppia Android, and these tests are written in UI Automator, and these tests are built using Bazel. This project also introduces infrastructure that would be helpful in uh, using the local development server to test the network requests. Next slide, please. So the project so far I have created in exploration which uses all the Android which uses all the Android supported interactions. So in the Oppia web repository, this exploration this exploration is published using a controller initializing test data uh, and which is a post request, and this post request helps us to upload to publish this exploration so that we can access this in Oppia Android. These end-to-end tests are written in a new module instrumentation, and these tests are run using ADB as a command in the command line. Next slide. So here, as you can see, the target for each test suite is the KT Android library, and we have a Android binary for each test suite. These two generate a test APK, which combined with the OPI APK, we run using the ADB AM shell command to run these tests. Next slide. So finally, we have exploration that can be tested for topic downloads, and we are able to write and run end-to-end tests in the Android repository, and we have created a separate test application component to for testing. Thank you.
Thank you, Faris.
Over to you,
Now,
Smash.
now we'll be moving to Abhay, who is working on the introducing support for displaying copyright licenses in the Oppia Android episode.
Hi everyone. Spurge, can you confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, Abhay, you're on it.
Okay. So, hi everyone. My name is Abhay Garg. My GSoC project is introducing support for displaying copyright licenses, and my mentor is Rajat Talisra. Next slide, please. Okay. So the aim of the project is to attribute all the third-party Maven dependencies that are used to build Oppia Android app along with their copyright licenses. To achieve this, we create a Kotlin script that generates a list of third-party Maven dependencies with the help of Bazel query. And we then create another Kotlin script that extracts the license text for these dependencies from their POM files, and also write these dependencies and their license text as string resources in a values XML file. We then hook up a UI that displays the list of dependencies and their license text in the Oppia Android app. And we also need to introduce some CI checks to ensure that the list of dependencies generated from the first Kotlin script is always up to date, and the actual license text never get checked into the code base. Next slide, please. Okay, so now let's talk about progress made so far. We now have a Kotlin script in our code base that generates the list of third-party Maven dependencies with the help of Bazel query. And for the rest of the tasks, PRs have been created and they are in their final review stage. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the final outcome of the project. So as a final outcome of the project, we'll have a new UI that will look like, next slide, please. So the UI will look like this. We display a list of dependencies in the UI, and upon clicking on one of the items of the dependencies list, we see a list of copyright licenses corresponding to that particular dependency. And upon clicking on one of the license item, we actually see the final license text. Next slide, please. Other than the new UI, the developers will now have to take some additional steps after updating any Maven dependencies in the code base. Contributors would now require to run the Kotlin script after updating the to update the list of Maven dependencies after they make any changes in versions.basel file of our code base. We'll also integrate two CI/CD pipelines to ensure that the Kotlin script is always up to date and the actual license text never gets checked into code base. That's all. Thank you.
Thanks, Abhay. So, and this one is the project that I've been working on from the past 2 months, and the mentor for my project is Ben Henning. So, let me tell you in brief about my project. Next slide, please. So, first of all, let me give you a basic idea of what static analysis is. So, static analysis is basically analyzing the code without compiling or running it. So we don't compile the code, we don't run the code. Then also we are aware of the errors that the code has. The errors can be anything, like the code is missing some documentation, or the code uses some prohibited import that we don't want the developers to use because the particular library has some issues with it. Or suppose if someone writes some code and forgets to write to add a test for it, then also we don't want this scenario to happen. We want that the code, all the code in the code base should be properly documented, should be integrated with the proper testing, and there shouldn't be any prohibited libraries or patterns or file contents. And there are many more things which I'll be uh, explaining in detail. So currently, the status of Oppia Android repository is that we do have static analysis checks present, but they are mainly based on linting. So the main aim of this project was to develop some custom static analysis check so that we are able to ensure that the code which is being merged in the repository is well documented, well tested, and in parity with the in standard according to the proper coding conventions. So there are mainly 7 layers of checks that we aim to add through this project. The first one is adding support for generic regex based prohibited pattern matching for file contents and naming patterns. Now, this might sound a bit confusing. So this is actually, suppose there's a support library, and we want that the developer should never use this library while writing the code. So in order to prevent that, we'll be adding some prohibited regex patterns in the script. So once someone pushes the code or initiates a PR, then our custom analysis check will take place, and it will search that if someone has used any prohibited import. Uh, if the regex pattern has matched for a particular import. This is just an example of a prohibited file content matching pattern. In the similar way, we have the file naming pattern. So this is actually for when someone adds a file in the wrong directory or layer. Suppose if someone adds an activity to the domain layer, we don't want this phenomenon to happen. So we basically term this as prohibited file naming because the path is actually prohibited. We don't want activities to be placed inside the domain layer. The another check that we want to add is based on the XML syntax validation. We want that all the XML files present in the Oppia Android repository are well formed. Well formed basically means that it is not syntactically broken. And the third check that we wanted to add was to ensure that all the activities are defined with accessibility labels. Now, to give a slight idea of what accessibility labels is, it's basically a label which is present on activities which helps the users who have some issues to make it accessible to each and every user who have some disability. So that whenever we are migrating to any new activity, then the talkback would announce the name of the activity or the new screen so that the user can be aware that yes, he or she has migrated to a new screen. Next slide, please. As I've stated earlier, we want that all the code should have almost 100% test coverage. So in order to achieve this goal, we have added a check. We want to add a check to ensure that every Kotlin file has a corresponding test file present. So this will ensure that all the code is present with the corresponding testing code for that, and we do not miss any test file or any Kotlin file by chance. And the next check that we wanted to add was to ensure that all the Kotlin files are properly documented. We want that for every non-private declaration for member, a particular documentation must be present. If you're confused about KDoc, KDoc is nothing but the documentation that we do on a Kotlin file. It's known as KDoc. So we want that all non-private members or declaration must have a valid, must have a KDoc present. And the last check that we wanted to add was for the to-dos in the code base. We want that each and every to-do present in the code base should be correctly formatted. And not only this, but it should always correspond to an open issue. If it's not the case, then we want the check to fail, and we want to prevent that ill-formatted to-do to be added in the code base. So next slide, please. Uh, this is about how much we have progressed so far. We have successfully added and integrated these checks in the CI. CI is the GitHub. CI is basically the GitHub actions that run when someone pushes or pushes the code or initiates a pull request. So we have introduced generic regex based pattern matching on file name and file contents, and we have added check to ensure the XML syntax validation. Test file presence check is added. The label check for accessibility label check for the activities is integrated too, and the KDoc presence check is also integrated. Next slide. And this is how the final outcome will look like. Suppose you initiate a PR, then the PR will undergo through the custom static analysis checks that have been developed, which are, as you can see, regex pattern, XML syntax, test file. And from after this project, each and every PR is expected to undergo through a 7-layer static analysis check to ensure each and every convention that I've mentioned previously. So thereby making the static analysis of Oppia Android much more powerful than ever. Thank you.
Thanks, Spurs. Hello, everyone. I am Yashraj, and I have been working on the project developer options menu of Android, Oppia Android. And my primary mentor is Sarthak Agarwal, and my secondary mentor is Vinita Murthy. So the aim of my project is to introduce a developer options menu in the Oppia Android app. What this menu is basically meant to do is to provide developers with features, functionalities to override app behaviors and make database related changes, such as modifying lesson progress, viewing analytic event logs, and forcing the network status of the app, forcing the app to show all hints and solution, and force crashing the app. Now let me go through them one by one. What modifying lesson progress means is, suppose we want to test a feature which requires us to complete a particular exploration. So and completing an exploration in Oppia Android may take more around 15 to 20 minutes in some cases. So it takes a lot of time to debug such scenarios. So using this feature, a developer can simply mark the exploration or a story or a topic completed with just a single 1 or 2 clicks. And the next feature is viewing the analytic event logs. What this basically does is it allows the developers to view the analytic event logs that have been reported in the app itself, so that we don't have to check the log cat every time we try to debug something. And the next feature is forcing the network status of the app. Okay, so there are some features in the app which require a particular network type to work. For example, in the Oppia Android app, there is a feature for audio in an exploration. So that feature will only work when the app is connected to a network. So similar to this, there may be many features which require us for a particular network, and this feature allows us to force the app to use a particular network instead of what the actual status of the device is. Basically, for example, if you want to test a feature with no internet access and you don't want your device to, you don't want to turn off the connection of your device, you can simply force the app to work on, to behave like there is no network. So this way you can test your features. And the next is showing all hints and solution and by default. So this is basically related to functionalities related to hints and solution if you want to test something. And for this, what this feature does is you don't have to wait for 60 seconds or mark a wrong answer to see a hint and all. You will basically be able to see all the hints and solutions by default when you open any exploration. Uh, and the next feature is force crashing the app. And this feature is where is the name explains itself. The user will be able to force crash the app using a button click. So this is what the we have the progress made so far. As of now, the Oppia Android app has the navigation as a navigation drawer menu item for accessing the developer options menu. And furthermore, this menu item will only be accessible when the app is built in debug mode. And there are several mm, uh, instructions to build the app in debug mode, which are commented out in the code itself. And the menu will have several options to use the features which I have explained earlier. And we have also introduced the feature to modify lesson progress and viewing analytic event logs and force crashing the app. The features for node force network status is under review, and for the hints and solution is under progress. And the final outcome of the project will be that the user will be able to use all the functionalities through a simple and intuitive UI. This will help the developers to debug certain functionalities easily and quickly, which doing manually may take a lot of time and sometimes isn't even possible. And this is a glimpse of the developer options menu item and the developer options itself. And you can explore more about it by using the app. Thanks. Over to you, Sparsh.
So thank you, Ishrat. Now we are open to any questions or any doubts that you have in the presentations that have happened so far. Uh, as I can see, there is one open question on Slido, that is, can open source contributions also help us in getting an internship or job at a big tech company like Google? So is anyone willing to answer that? When would you like to take this one?
I mean, I can speak for this. One of the, I mean, this is totally like relative, but I feel like what it does, open source contributions, is basically giving you the opportunity to see what it's like to work in a large code base, which is basically what you would do in a big tech company. So, I mean, it helps you get the experience for sure, and it generally like gives you the ability to understand what it's like to actually work on uh, like write test driven code and things like that, best practices that are done big tech companies.
Thank you, Vinita. So are there any other questions or doubts?
Just a reminder, if you have no access to Slido, you can also post your questions in the Google chat itself. Sparsh, I think we can move forward.
Okay, sure. We have one question.
Yeah,
What
one
be
question.
what benefits we get of Bazel over Gradle? So anyone would like to take this question? Abhay, Arjun, Faris, anyone of you? I can answer this on the basis of the experience that I had so far with Bazel. It's like managing the dependencies and everything with Bazel is actually much simpler than Gradle, and also I think it's it's much faster than Gradle. Although it does take much time in the when we are running the build process for the first time, but for the uh, third or fourth time, it's really much fast. Any other benefit that someone like to add?
Yeah, I would like to add to your answer. What Bazel provides us is more control over our code base. What From my experience, what happened in my case that uh, in some cases I had to exclude some of the files from building. So this is relatively simpler in Bazel rather than Gradle. So there is this benefit that you can have more control over your code. Yeah.
Okay, so there are no more questions. Let us move forward on the next project, that is implement schema validation for handler params. Over to you, Nikhil.
Yeah. Hello everyone. My name is Nikhil and I'm mentored by Rohit.
Nikhil, I think your voice is little low.
Okay. So now I'm audible, right?
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. So yeah, repeating once again. Hello everyone. I am Nikhil and I'm mentored by Rohit. So yeah, next slide please. My project. This project aims to validate data coming from request methods against its schema and then pass into the backend structure of the code base. This validation requires a framework which validates all types of data, including some of the complex ones like lists and decks, in a unified way. Now, whenever the validation fails, it immediately raises an exception with an appropriate message, and the status code for exception is 400. Like for validation of data, this framework relies fully on Oppia's inbuilt functionality of schema utils, so it don't use any third party libraries. After validation, schema utils also normalizes the data so that it will be easy to for further use in the handler args or handler class. After completion of this project, this project also requires to build a user friendly documentation which provides a guidance to other contributors for writing schema to the handler params. uh, After this project, after all, this project also requires enabling schema validation on a part of our current handlers. So next slide, please. Now the progress so far. I have completed implementation of architecture and documentation part. Like I have designed the framework and the framework relies on some lint checks and backend tests. I have introduced a way to incrementally add schema validation to the handler params so that it cannot affect the development of existing code base. I have also introduced schemas for around 24 files. Yes, some of them are still in review, but yes, it will emerge soon. Apart from all these, I have created a good first issue so that other contributors can add schema for remaining handlers by help of documentation provided in the Oppia's wiki page. This is current progress. And next slide, please. Now, the final outcome. This project provides a unified way to parse and validate and normalize handler argument by help of schema validation framework before reaching handler class in the backend structure. After this project, the schema validation will be implemented successfully on a part of current handlers, which will be introduced by me. But yes, I guess the full completion of project requires other contributors too in order to complete the good first issue and make the backend structure fully validated by the schema validation. For for achieving this, I would like to thank Rohit, Sandeep, Voita, Sean, and other community members. So thank you.
Thank you, Nikhil. Now
Thanks.
moving on to the next project, that is moving custom JS or TS-lint based text to ESLint. Uh, I'll be inviting Aditya.
Hello everyone, my name is Aditya Dubey. I am working on moving custom JSTS lint check to ESLint project under the mentorship of Anshul Hooda. Next slide please. In this project, I have to migrate all the JSTS lint check from Python to ESLint check and implement some end-to-end test related lint check in the code base. It helps developers to follow the organization's coding principle directly through their code editor. It also enforces developers to write new lint check using one and only structure, that is ESLint custom checkers. Next slide, please. I have completed migrating all of the JSTS regex checks to custom ESLint rules and also implement all the required end-to-end test related lint checks. As of now, my project is completed and it is under external evaluation. Next slide, please. Finally, all Oppia's custom JSTS rules are running in ESLint, which is much faster and provide lint issues directly on code editors like VS Code, Sublime, etc. That's all from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Aditya. Next, we have Hardik, who's working on the project making the backend code typed.
Hello everyone, I'm Hardik Katara and I'm working on the project making backend code type under the mentorship of Sajal Asati. Next slide please. So the aim of my project is to add support for backend type checking using MyPy, and for this I have to add a type checker script and implement this script in the pre-push hook and add the CI checks for type checking. And I also have to add documentation for type checking and tell the developers how should they use the type checking script. And under this project, I'll also be annotating the storage layer and platform layer. Next slide, please. The progress so far. So till now, I've implemented the type check script and added the type checks to the pre-push hook and implemented the CI checks. I have also created a wiki page for backend type checking, and I have type annotated the storage layer and some part of the platform layer. Next slide, please. So I have faced a lot of challenges during this GSoC period, and one of the major challenges I have faced is that MyPy is a Python 3 library. But when I started out with this project, the Oppia codebase was still Python 2. So a lot of things had to be figured out, and one of the things I figured out was that installation of MyPy and other Python 3 libraries should be done separately in other folders. Another challenge I faced was that a lot of popular libraries do not have stubs available either in their installation packages or on some on or they are not available on GitHub or something. So I wrote stubs for them, and I wrote stubs for only methods and classes which we use. Next slide, please. So the final outcome of the project, we'll have a code base that supports backend type checking. This will help in catching bugs during the development itself and will make the code more readable. And the storage layer and the platform layer will be type annotated. Thank you. Over to you, Spash.
Thank you, Hardik. Uh, Next, we have Aryaman, who is working on the project improving exploration safe flow. You can begin, Aryaman.
Yeah, thanks, Spurs. Hi, am I audible?
Yes, yes, you are.
Yeah, cool. So, myself, Arman Gupta, and my project is improving exploration safe flow, and my mentors are Kevin and Eric. So let's start. Next slide, please. So, in the past, many creators had faced issues regarding losing changes in case of flaky connections or when some other collaborator had updated the exploration they were working on. So, in these cases, they used to lose all the changes that were not saved, all the changes that were in their draft. So, my project basically fixes this problem to a great extent. The first part of my project allows multiple collaborators to make simultaneous edits to the exploration. The second half enables the offline editing of the exploration so that any creator does not lose changes or can continue working when they have a flaky connection. Next slide, please. Yeah. So as of now, in the first part, multiple creators, collaborators can make simultaneous edits to the exploration. So before auto-saving any change to a draft, we check whether the change made is unrelated to the existing edits that had been committed since the last draft was started. If yes, then the changes get saved, and if conflicts, then the discard changes model appears, where we show the changes the user is going to lose, and we give them an option to export those changes for the future references. So let's explain this with an example. If two collaborators are working on the same exploration, and the first one makes some changes in the first state, which doesn't affect the second state and saves it, and the second user is making some changes in the second state while being on the version from where both the users started making changes. Then in this case, the second user's changes will be saved and its exploration will automatically update, including both the first and second user's changes. Next slide, please. In the second half of my project, as for now, we preload all the components, models, and images used in exploration editor. So we do this because if any user suddenly goes offline, then they can still open all the models and with all the thumbnails and images included in that model. Also, the user will now get notified when they are offline and online, and and if they're on offline, then their changes will be saved locally and will be pushed later on when they are reconnected. The second point, pro PR is very close to merging, and the user will be able to use this in few days. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, Splash, isn't the video included? Like I included the video here.
I think
Uh,
that
just a
might
minute,
have.
I will. Okay.
Sorry, no, like there were two videos.
Actually, I think we have only one video which is on this slide.
No, okay, there were. I included it later on. I included two videos. No problem. So the final outcome of the first part is what I have discussed so far. Like the users will be able to make simultaneous edits to exploration, and in case of conflict, they will be given an option to export the changes they are going to lose, and that will help avoiding losing so many changes at a time. Next slide, please. And secondly, the creators will not lose the changes in case of glitch connection. I can show you the demo for this thing, maybe. Can you play this video? Yeah, open drive. It will open, just open one. Okay, so can you just stop and restart once? Can just restart. Yeah, yeah. So here you can see we are on exploration at the page and I am going offline here. So whenever I go offline, I get a notification where I get informed that I can see make the changes when I'm offline. And here I'm making some changes in the content while being offline. So as you can see that these changes are like saved, we didn't get any errors. And when we go online again, I get again notified and my changes are updated in the draft. As you can see, count increased to 1 and I can make changes to my draft. And I can make changes, save the changes of the draft. So this was from my side. Now creators will not lose their progress as often they used to. Now we hope for better collaboration. Cool, thanks.
Thank you, Arivan. Uh, the next project is of integrating the Oppia block with oppia.org, and we have Rijuta working on it. So, Rijuta, you can begin.
Thanks, Sparsh. Hi, everyone. I am Rajita and I am mentored by Prayush on my project integrating the Oppia blog with Oppia.organization. Through next slide, please. Coming to the introduction of my project, currently we write and publish our blog posts on a website called Medium. Through this project, we aim to integrate the blogging interface directly on our organizations. So our members and contributors can directly use our website to publish blog posts. Next slide, please. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Next slide, please. Yeah, thank you. So, uh, yeah. So coming to progress so far, although backend required for storing data and maintaining its quality like services, domain layer, and validators were done completely and merged with develop in the last milestone. And the blog dashboard front end will be completed and will be ready for using after this milestone. Next slide, please. Coming to the final outcome of the project, we will have a blog dashboard which will have a editor through which we can write blog posts and publish them. These are the few glimpses of how our blog dashboard looks. Next slide. This is the editor which will allow our users to write blog posts. Next slide. This is just an example of how our blog post will look after one has created a blog post. Next slide. This is preview of a blog card, which will be displayed on the main blog homepage. On clicking on which users will be able to go to the main blog post page. Next slide. That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, Rijita. Now we are again open to questions. If anyone has any doubts in any of the presentations, they can add the question to the slide or in the Google chat. I can see we have some questions. So the first one is for Aryaman. Uh, Someone wants to ask, like, can we merge changes, like we resolve merge conflicts in GitHub?
No, we are not handling the merge conflicts as of now. We are just informing the user that they are going to lose changes. But after this project, like they will not lose so many changes. They will lose most probably one or two changes at a time. So that's not a like we are not merging changes as of now. But yeah, we can do that in future versions of this project, maybe.
And there is also another question. Are there any plans to add a banner to say that user is offline along with the toast? This way, if the user misses the toast, they'll know they are offline.
Oh, so like banner as of the server error, are they talking about?
I think
Like the vendor, yeah. Okay, so no, yeah. Like initially, I thought of adding a banner also. Like yeah, but we can do this. The PR is not merged yet. I'll try to do this thing before the milestone. We can do this thing, but it will just look like repetitive. And I'll discuss this with the mentors, and we'll try to do this thing if possible.
we also have one more question. I'm not sure for
Yeah,
which project.
it's for me, I guess.
Okay.
Will users know if someone else is also editing the exploration? No, like the users will not know like if someone is else is working on the exploration or not. We have just improved the improved the system to avoid losing so many changes at a time. And if the changes are not conflicting, like initially the users, if the changes were in totally different aspects of the exploration, then also the user used to lose the changes. So we are avoiding that. If the users are working on two different things in an exploration, maybe two different states or two different fields, then the changes will get merged, and they will not lose those changes.
Thank you, Ariman, for clearing the doubts. Are there any other questions that we have? I think we have covered each question from Slido, and we have no other questions in the Google chat. So we can move to the next presentation, that is of redesigning and updating the learner dashboard. And we have Krishita working on this project. So over to you, Krishita.
Thanks, Posh. Hi guys, I'm Krishita Jain and my project is redesigning and updating the learner dashboard page under the mentorship of Akshay Anand. Next slide, please. Coming to the introduction of the project, as we already know, Oppia brings forth the platform to conduct comprehensive courses in the form of classrooms. But at present, there is no way for a learner to keep a track of their progress. This project aims to solve this and also incorporates planning and recommendation of topics, subtopics, and stories to the learner. This project adds 4 new tabs in the learner dashboard page, replacing the existing ones. Next slide, please. So the progress so far is the development for all the tabs has been completed and successfully merged with develop. These tabs will be made accessible to the user after the completion of milestone 2. Next step, please. So the final outcome of this project will be that the old tabs will be removed and the new learner dashboard page will be displayed to the user. These are the few glimpses of the new learner dashboard page. So we will have a home tab inside the learner dashboard menu. The first tab will be of the home tab, which will display 2 sections: continue where you left off and suggested for you. Please, next slide, please. The next tab in the learner dashboard menu will be of goals. Here the learner can select uh, up to five goals, five topics as their current goals. And after they complete it, next slide please, it will be moved to their completed goals section. Next slide please. The next tab will be of progress. It will have two sections, skill proficiency and stories completed. The skill proficiency section will display all the topics that the user can achieve their mastery in. And next slide, please. And the stories completed will display all the stories that the user has completed till now. Next slide, please. Currently we have in progress, completed, and play later tabs, three separate tabs in the learner dashboard page. These three tabs will be replaced by a single tab, the community lessons tab, which will display in progress, completed. Next slide, please. Play later and the subscriptions tab section inside this tab. That's it for now. Thanks. Over to you, Sparsh.
Thank you, Krishita. Uh, for the next project, we have Isha and Mridul who are working on the project improving front-end type system. So you can begin.
Hi everyone, I am Isha Arif and I'll be talking with Mridul. We worked on the joint project of improving front-end type system. Our primary mentors were Wasik and Shazan who helped us throughout the project. Mridul will take over and explain about the project further, so you can go to the next slide please.
So, hi everyone, I'm Radu. Starting with the introduction of our project, strict is basically a TypeScript compiler option which turns on a set of stricter type rules like no implicit any, no implicit this, stricter property initialization, etc. So Oppia uses Angular for front end with TypeScript as its primary language, and the code base fully does not pass the strict rules at present. And this makes the code prone to some of the unexpected errors. So the aim of our project was to basically introduce strict typing to collectively around 480 files present in the code base, classes, models, components, and the spec files. So the task basically involved refactoring of code to pass stricter types, removing code smells and fixing some wrong coding patterns, and catering some edge cases at several places.
Now coming to the progress we have made so far, one of the first things that we did was make updates to the wiki. There was already a comprehensive guide on defining types available, which explained the need to define types, where they should be defined, how the interfaces should be declared, and some supporting style conventions. This code base is fully typed. All the files still do not pass the 7 TypeScript checks when you enable strict mode. We came up with a set of more than 7 cases of errors, which we have seen encountered time and again when we were fixing the errors encountered by strict typing, and listed them all down in the wiki so that we or any other developer may refer back to these situations when the code change is made. We'll explain some of these cases later on in the presentation. You can go to the next slide.
So in addition to the updation of the wiki, list with around 650 plus files sorted in topological order with the number of dependencies was provided at the start of GSoC. So we covered around 400 plus files from the list, and over 700 plus errors were fixed from these files. Next slide, please.
We would like to explain and bring to light some of the errors that we have seen occur and how we best think they can be avoided. The first most recurring error we have seen is on uninitialized properties, since when working with Angular, one of the practices is to initialize these properties using Angular lifecycle hooks. So they do get initialized, but the compiler can figure it out. To bypass this, non-null assertion should be done. Now, non-null assertion, or the exclamation mark, if you can see, it is used to assert that the operand is non-null and it is non-undefined. Checker is unable to conclude the same fact as we have stated before. The other practices that should be followed is to ensure that all the properties declared have a specific type associated with them. And if a specific type does not exist, then declare an interface for that type and use it instead. Next slide, please.
We can also throw errors at appropriate places. For example, example in the images shown below, get element by ID here could return a null value if the argument provided is not correct. So in such cases, the code will behave in an unpredictable way and throw different errors. So it would be an error ourselves and add the unit test for the same. Next slide, please.
Coming to unit tests, this is something that a lot of files had and is very easy to fix. The properties declared should not be initialized with null. Leave them as is since they are injected as your specific types later, and it won't be a problem. Next slide.
And we have to use typecasting as much as possible. So here, as you can see, that the variable had a type of any before it was provided as a parameter to the create function. So the function create expects a particular type of parameter. So we'll have to typecast it as shown. Next slide, please.
We highly recommend using some of these practices since avoiding these errors and enabling strict mode would definitely help increase the quality of the code. Also, it will make the code more self-documenting with all the interfaces and types declared for each property. It will also solve a lot of runtime errors since the edge cases would have been catered for. Next slide.
So the final outcomes also. With the PRs merged, more than around 480 individual files in the code base will have been updated to be strictly typed and pass these script type rules. And 35 plus directories will have strict mode enabled by default. File added to these directories will have TypeScript mode enabled, and the added files would also need to pass the strict type types. Over to you, Sparsh.
Thank you, Isha and Mridul. Uh, Now we'll proceed to the next project, that is of Angular migration, and Ashutosh Chauhan is working on that project. So Ashutosh, uh, oh, I think he has some problem right now. So for the moment, we can proceed to the next project. Meanwhile, Ashutosh can be ready. And the next project is of writing front-end test. So I would like to invite Ashwarya, Praneeth, and Radesh for presenting.
Hi everyone, I'm Praneeth. So Aishwarya, Radesh, and I are doing the project Write Front-End Test. Our mentors are Kevin Thomas and Antesh Hariharan. Next slide, please. So the aim of the project is to add front-end tests for like all the components, directives, and services in the Oppia repository. So basically, a good front-end test aims to like prevent regression. It should also act as like a documentation for developers and ensures that the quality of code is maintained and provide a better bug-free experience for our users. Next slide. So, so for the next two slides, I'll show the progress we've made over the past few months. So we can see this is the image that was at the beginning of GSoC. So only 30,000 statements were covered by around 4,500 front-end tests. So in other words, like 74% of the code base was covered by front-end tests. Next slide, please. So over the past few months, we've added around 2,000 front-end tests and increased the coverage to 3,900 lines. So in other words, like around 91% of the code base is now covered by the front-end tests. Next slide, please. So here are some essential tips you might need when writing front-end tests. So recently, Sandeep had merged a PR that requires developers to add the -- verbose flag to see log output in the terminal when running the front-end test. So by enabling these log outputs, developers can debug using the console.error statement. The next one is that when writing front-end test descriptions, like in the if function, it's recommended that developers write in the format should do X when Y happens. Let's say, for example, should publish exploration when the user clicks the publish button. So like the text description should be written from the perspective of the user. This way, the developers will not only be writing tests, but also be writing a form of documentation. And the next is that a single front-end test that's written within the if block must be split into like 4 subsections by inserting new lines. So the first subsection is like the setup where you put like all the variables and all the functions you want to spy on, etc. The second subsection is like the pre-checks where we test variables that we expect whose values are going to change. Then is the action subsection where we function we want to test is executed. And finally, the post-check subsection, where the variables that we tested in pre-checks are tested again with the expected change in their values. And we also test for function calls. You can get more information on how to write robust tests in the front-end test guide in the wiki. The link is present in the bottom right corner. We'll also add more guidelines at the end of milestone to help future developers. Next slide, please. So final outcome of the project is we expect that around 92%, actually more than 92% of the code base will be covered by front-end tests. This means that all of the testable components, diagrams, and services will have front-end tests. The front-end tests will also be updated to provide guidelines on how to write robust tests and also add tips on how to handle tricky situations. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Praneeth, for the presentation. So, Ashutosh is having some trouble regarding joining the meet. So, I think, yeah, oh, I see, he's ready. So, Keshav, can you please, yeah. So,
Yeah.
Ashutosh, you can begin.
Yeah. Hi everyone. Sorry for the interruption. My name is Ashutosh Chauhan. I am working on Angular migration project. My mentors are Srijal Reddy and Nikesh Haryana. Next slide, please. The aim of my project is to introduce Angular router in the code base and migrate 25 pages to it. My project also includes migrating 6 pages to Angular and some directives. You can find the list of pages in the slide. So at present, when we switch from one page to another, a new Angular application is bootstrapped, and all libraries are reloaded into the browser. This leads to slow navigation between pages and downloaded again and again. So this can be issue for users with slow internet speeds. By introducing the Angular router, we only download the unique modules which are required for the new page. The libraries and the Angular application itself is shared throughout the pages. As a result, the end users will experience very fast switching between pages. Next slide, please. Hello. Yeah. Progress so far. All 6 pages and directives are migrated to Angular now. Angular router is also introduced in the code base, and I have migrated 15 pages to it. And the PR is up for migrating the last 10. I'm hoping I will be able to merge it by the end of this week. Next slide, please. I guess I covered the first 2 points. So coming to the last point, after completion of this project, we can also add animations between page switches, which will result in better user experience. And is the video working? Yeah. Thanks, that's it.
Thank you, Ashutosh. Now we are done with all the projects for GSoC for this session, and this are all the projects that all the GSoC students have been working on from the past 2 months, and they demonstrated how this is going to impact the community. Now we are open to every question that you have regarding the project or open source contributions or anything like that. So please feel free to ask questions on Slido link or in the Google chat. Also, the GSoC students can also ask questions to another GSoC student if they have some doubts regarding their project. I think we have a question. It says front-end test sometimes gives constant timeouts on CI or locally. So can anyone take this?
Timeouts, as in, I'm not sure whether we faced timeouts before, but I guess you're talking about the memory issue where I think the node memory runs out. Yeah, we're currently looking at it and we'll fix it soon. I think we can do this by simply increasing the memory. We might also have plans to split it into shards, like how it's done with backend tests. But yeah, we'll take a look at it and properly fix it.
Okay. Thank you, Praneeth. The other another question is any ideas or suggestions for next year's GSoC applicants contributing to the Oppia Android project? So, based on my experience, I would like to say that you should always start contributing a bit earlier. Uh, the reason for this is getting familiar with the code base takes time, and each and every different code bases have some different conventions. So you need proper time to make yourself adapt to the coding conventions and all the and the workflow of how uh, your PR, how the process works from initiating a PR to finally getting it merged, and what all checks and everything we have. So this will surely give you an edge above those who start contributing just at the time of GSoC. So uh, the more you can get familiar with the projects, the better you will be able to work on the project, and your chances will be much high. Anyone else would like to add any other point for this? Uh, okay, so we have another question, and that is, what are the biggest things that you learned from this GSoC that you didn't know before GSoC? So, is anyone willing to take this?
Um, one of the major points I learned through my GSoC is earlier what I used to think was that Python 2 and Python 3 were pretty similar, and it's there is not much difference. But when I actually got into doing my project, so the thing here was that the uh, library I was going to use was a Python 3 library, and our code base was Python 2 then. So I had to adapt to a lot of things, and this is one of the major things which I had learned. Thank you.
Thank you, Hardik, for your the suggestions on this doubt. Uh, we have another question on how should we begin with Bazel. There are not much tutorials on YouTube or web. Yeah, I do agree to this one. When I started solving issues that were based on Bazel, I myself had much trouble on getting familiar with this. So we don't have enough YouTube tutorials for Bazel, as Bazel is relatively new, and there are actually very few tutorials on the net for this. So currently, the best way you can get familiar is with solving issues. If you get stuck on any Bazel issue, just tag the mentors for that issue, or you can ask it on our Gitter channel. And so you basically have to do some hit and trial, and then only you will get to explore many things. Like I didn't learn Bazel from the documentation or anything. The more I worked on its issues, I became more and more familiar with that. So yeah, this was what I have to say.
In addition to that, there is a example Android app in their documentation. I would recommend following that documentation. That's it.
We have one more question, and that is, what are the next features, or maybe it can be ideas that you can suggest, that is OPI looking for in the next GSoC? So I think we can answer this based on the future work items for our project, or maybe any other project. So everyone, please feel free to answer this. With regard to my project, we are planning that in my project, we are basically ensuring that all the Kotlin files are well documented. Basically, we are ensuring that each and every non-private declaration is having a KDoc or not. But we are actually not validating that whether it has the correct formatting or not. So although it has document, although it has a KDoc, but we are not sure if it is properly formatted or not. So one future work of my project is to actually validate the KDocs present. My project is ensuring the presence of KDocs, and the future work item will be to validate that it's present and it's also as per the correct format that we have in the Oppia Android repository. And for that, I think we have to develop a custom parser for parsing the KDocs, and that will that will be a quite an interesting project to work on because it will involve developing a custom parser for this. So yeah.
At the beginning of the year, usually we have like a meeting where each team tells what they've worked on for the past year and what they will be working on in the next year. That way, you'll have an idea on like all the ongoing projects and what uh, might be the GSoC project. And it's better to get an idea what uh, actually what team interests you or what project a specific team is working on interests you, and then choose the project. Yeah, so keep an eye out. I think next year around January we'll have a meeting with what we'll be doing for 2022.
Thank you, Praneeth. We have one more question, and that is the most quoted one. That is Oppia planning to give swags this year? So I would like to invite Vinita or Shaw maybe to answer this one.
Sean, what do you think? Okay, I'm not sure if Sean is there. I don't know. Maybe we can when later we can ask Sean and Ben.
Sure. And we have another upvoted question, second most upvoted question. That is, can Oppia mentors give the referrals to the GSoC students for the placements and internships? So any of the mentors who would like to answer this one, or anyone, please feel free.
So I mean, it depends, I guess. If like mentors can give at their companies if they want to. So yeah, I mean, it's not that it's not possible. Yeah.
Thank you, Vinita. So we'll just wait for 1 or 2 minutes more to see if we have any other questions left.
Yeah, just a small update about the timeout error that was asked previously about
Sure.
test. So if you're facing it locally, then you can just use fake async and then resolve it. You can take a look at how the test has been written. However, if you're seeing the error in develop or in GitHub Actions, then report it in the issue I pasted in the chat. Issue number is 13467. So we're currently tracking a couple of front-end test flags over there. Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Actually, I have one question for Arjun. Arjun, can you please explain what does feature flag exactly mean? I'm basically confused with the term.
Okay, so in simple terms, platform parameter is something which is able to determine a particular behavior of an if-else statement. But just in case you have a boolean value out of that platform parameter, so it can be used as a feature flag. And like feature flag, for example, you can see where like some days whenever you're using a particular app in on a certain day, you are using a screen and seeing it normally. On any other day, you may find that without any updation, you get a different UI or element or some tweaking behavior over that, which seems like there is an update, but there's actually no update from your side. You didn't push a update button on Play Store. So that's something which can be controlled with the help of feature flags. So they literally hide a feature inside an Apex block so that you can toggle it on and on based on like some parameters like any analytics or any pre-planned strategy to first of all release in certain regions, get the analytics out of that, and if it is good, then we will proceed further. So these kind of things are used in a large scale applications. That's a feature flag.
Thank you, Arjun. Uh, Also, I have another question for Abhay. So, Abhay, your project involves displaying the copyright licenses. So, can you please explain how you are handling the case when we don't get a license for a particular dependency? I mean, what do we do in that case?
Okay, so for example, if we do not, if the script does not find any license for a particular dependency, then we have to manually update our text proto file, and to make it easier, what we have done is if we update any one dependency, for example, let's say five dependencies have a same license, so you will only require to update the first dependency that has some A license, and it will automatically update all other dependencies that have the same license.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
So, do we have any other questions, or is someone having any doubt related to anyone's project or anything like that? So, I think we have covered all the questions, all the pending questions on Slido, and I don't see any question in the Google chat too. So I think yes, we can wrap this event now. Uh, Thanks a lot to everyone for attending this event, and uh, uh, we would really love to hear your feedback on this event. We'll also be circulating the link to this form in the Google groups and the Twitter channels. So please feel free to give the feedback for this event. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Sparsh and Yash, for organizing this whole thing.
Thank you. Thank you.